All right. Thank you, Benjamin, for the introduction, and thank you for the honorable mention. And I want to say this is a truly collaborative work, and the paper and the honorable mention won't be possible with my wonderful collaborators, Nathalie, Fanny, and Bruno, and my awesome supervisor, Daniel Wigdor. So let's talk about DataInk. Recently, we have seen a trend of information visualization where beyond making traditional charts, artists, designers, and researchers have started to create meaningful, memorable, and beautiful pieces of information visualization. And the Dear Data project is one of the highlights of this movement, where the two artists, Georgia and Stephanie, record data every week and drew the visualization of this data on a postcard. And they exchange the postcard to each other every week for a whole year. And these visualizations are full of meaningful, creative encodings, which tells the story of the data in a very compelling way. And my question to you is, do you want to create this? Okay. And it doesn't seem to be that hard, right? You just need to grab a piece of paper and some colorful pens and start drawing on it. And you just need to let your imagination and creativity flow with the nice drinks and the nice atmosphere. But the reality doesn't always seems to be, as we expect. The exploration is fun with pencil and paper, but the execution can sometimes become very painful. For example, this visualization of doors visualized all the doors Georgia opened in a week, and it's more than 700 data points. And it took her more than 6 hours to complete. And nobody wants this. And in our interview with her, she said, the automation of digital tools can be very helpful, especially when you have a lot of data points, when the exploration and the execution become very hard for pencil and paper. And talking about digital tools, we have a few options, as our first speaker said, and each of them have their own problems, such as limited templates, or just keeping the encoding in your mind and putting them into the drawing with drawing tools, or just writing programs. Well, using these tools is tedious, it's difficult, and usually requires a lot of learning to just get started. And by the time you get your first version of design, you probably just have to go to bed to take some rest. And recently, a lot of tools has been proposed, such as Lara, Data-Driven Guide, and Data Illustrator, which we will see shortly. They have made great progress on creating data-driven graphics and easing the difficulty of creating the mapping. But their focus is more of the high-fidelity, high-precision, data-driven graphics. Our focus is trying to turn all these boring numbers into something like this. And it's not that easy because you have to play with a lot of different visual styles and a lot of visual encodings to find the best one. And you play with a lot of visual parameters and the mapping between data attributes and the visual attributes. Wouldn't it be great if we can just create this visualization, like how we use crayon when we were kids? So we seek to support the exploration and execution or the creation of data visualizations of the hand-drawn and personal visualizations with direct and intuitive input. So we choose pen touch, but choosing pen touch doesn't solve your problem immediately because we're not just drawing random strokes on the canvas. We're drawing data visualizations where the strokes and its attributes are all encoding rich data. And to understand the role of encoding, let's take a look at the postcard again. So this is the postcard of week 34, which shows the week of urban wildlife. But to understand this postcard, we need to know how the data is encoded. For example, what does this dot mean? Does this color mean something to you? Or what does this line represent? And to understand this encoding, we need to take a look at the back of the postcard, where we find out that the dot on top of the triangle represent the gender of the dog owner, and the color of the bar represent the color of the dog. And the number of lines underneath the triangle represent the length of the fur. And we also find out there's a little panel here encode the layout of the entire data set. And this design of reading instructions is consistent through the entire set of the visualization. And it's very helpful for us as readers to understand the encoding so that we can understand the visualization on the front side of the postcard. Well, it's not just for us, these encodings. During the exploration and the creation of this visualization, Georgia also had to create these encodings on the paper to guide the drawing of these visualizations. However, the problem of having these encodings on the paper is that you cannot change your encoding halfway through. You cannot iterate it. Because when you change it, when you say you have drawn 50% of your data set and you want to try something else, you have to start over. And DataInk, with DataInk, we want to let you flexibly specify and iterate the data encodings to create these data visualizations. So let's take a look at the DataInk. So this is the interface of DataInk. You have one big canvas in the center and the legend on the left. The legend consists of two panels, the Glyph panel and the layout panel. So the Chi conference is great because we can see a lot of interesting works. We can also meet a lot of interesting people. So over the week, I have been tracking all the people that have been spoken to, and engaged in a long conversation. So let's load this data set and try to visualize it as a postcard. So I can tap this button and choose the data set. Now the data set is loaded into the canvas. So I want to represent all the people in the data set using a sort of like contact card design. So I can start to draw my design. Something like this. This is the background, the contact card. So let's say I want to use this template to represent all the people in the data set. And to do that, I can hold on the Glyph panel in the legend and use my pen to lasso select the template. And this will populate the canvas by using the template to represent all the data points in the data set. But they all look the same. So we want to see which what data attributes each of this glyph is representing. So I can tap on this one and see all the data attributes of the glyph on the outer ring of this palette. Let me zoom in a little bit. And we find out this person is actually Rubiet. So Rubiet now is a researcher at Adobe, and I met him the first day during the conference in the talk, and he was wearing a blue jacket. But before I dive in to configure all these attributes of Rubiet, I want to change the background color of the contact card. So to do that, I can use my pen to select the rectangle down there. Oops. Oh, anybody has a stylus for me? There we go. So I can just lasso select the shape that I want to configure to call them their visual attributes. But I want to select this shape. So we see three visual attributes: the shape, the fill color, and the stroke color. And I want to edit the fill color. So here I want to give a little bit of gray as background. But then you realize whenever I change the attribute of this particular data points, the change is applied to all of them because they are all driven by one template. So I will just use this gray color. Pretty happy with this color. Next, I want to encode just to represent the jacket. And I want to use the fill color of this shape to represent the color of the clothes. And I can do the same thing here, change it to blue. But the problem is, this is also applied to all the data points or the glyphs. But what I really want is I want to use this fill color to represent the color of the jacket, which means I want to encode the color of the clothes using this visual attribute. And to do that, I can just grab this attribute and drop it on top of the data attribute to form an encoding. And now, if I change the color is only applied to all the people with the blue jacket. And this is kind of annoying right now because all of them are still blue. So what I can do is I can sort of like break this encoding first, and then set them back, create this encoding again, and set them again. So I want to finish the encoding for all the values in this data set. So I can zoom back, and I can tap on this guy. This guy clearly doesn't have a blue, so it's white. But the problem is I have to go through all the data points on the canvas, all the glyphs on the canvas to find the other values. What I want at this moment is to be able to see all the different values in this data set. And I can make use of the Glyph panel here. So whenever I create a mapping on the canvas using the palette, a global sort of like legend is also formed in the Glyph panel. And I can tap on this to review all the values in this data set. So I can start configure, just yellow, white is done, red, pink. So this must be a lovely student volunteer. Orange, brown, I guess brown is like that, black. Okay. Now I'm done just by going through all the lists without even caring about how many data points are on the canvas. So next, I want to encode more data into the glyph. So I can find another person here. Oh, this is actually Professor Manish Agrawala from Stanford. So, sometimes the institution matters, and I want to highlight the institution in the glyph. So what I can do is, maybe I can draw a little shape here, more as an index, and you realize that shape is propagated to all the data points. And I want to use its fill color. Oops, just select the fill color here. And I want to use this fill color to represent the institution. So the color I will use probably is the main color of their logo. But Stanford has two colors in their logo, I think. It's a green tree in the foreground and the red ass in the background. So any people from Stanford here, which color do you want to use? Nobody? Okay, then I will just choose the green. And we can do the same thing just to finish the configure. So this lists all the institutions, the people that have come from. I know Adobe is red. Is that true? Okay. Might not be the correct red. I know CMU HCII is a dark red. Inervia is a little bit orange, but red. KAIST. Any people from KAIST? Blue. Okay. MIT, I think it's dark gray. Microsoft is tricky. They have 4 colors in their logo. So DataInk doesn't support this for now. But I love Microsoft. I love Seattle and Washington. I would just use green because it's an evergreen state. NYU, it's blue. Oculus, I remember it's black. Tsinghua, where I did my undergrad, it's magenta. UW. Any people from UW? Purple. Okay. All right, guys. Yeah. So I have just created this mapping of the institution. Well, encoding the data in the glyph is cool, but sometimes you want to use the layout to represent the data in the data set. So we can use the layout to sort of like configure the layout of the whole data set. And you realize there's this little slot here, which I can tap to find the attributes that I want to use to separate the data, the whole data set. So now they are separated based on the gender, their institution. Maybe I will just separate them based on where I'm at them. So I can separate them into 3 groups, and I believe this is the group of, I'm at the group of people at the Toronto tequila party. But I think, maybe a different, I have a good idea of drawing the tequila. So I don't want to use the layout, but I just, let me go back to the glyph. So I will draw a margarita here. And then map this to the event. Oops, okay. And I can configure the other event here using the glyph, using the panel here. So ha probably means I met these people during the coffee break. The eraser of the pen. Okay, so I'll draw a coffee mug. Nah, Benjamin giving me a sign that I don't have time, so I'm just going to quickly draw this. Talk, maybe a microphone. Okay, so now we're done with all the events. What I want is next. Oops, something happened here. The CC is shifted, so I have probably more work to do after this. I've represented this event in the glyph, so I don't need the layout anymore, right? So what I want to do is I want to find a different way of representing it. Oh, maybe I can go for the title. So these must be the group of the grad students, yes. And these are all the researchers that have met in this conference. And these are the professors that have met. And I think we together form a big Chi family. So what I'm going to do is I will change the distribution of all these groups. And the distribution is a higher level group attribute. And I can just tap on that and create a new distribution. Like that. Benjamin, don't worry, I will be done soon. Okay, I can spend another few minutes to polish this, but let's go back to the talk. So that's, thank you. So that's DataInk, and we have studies that with 8 participants in the paper, so for the details of the study, please read our paper. But I want to quickly visualize what they have drawn. So this is the week of all the dogs, and this is the week of the thank you that gave or received by the participants, and this is the week of envy. And remember, they don't create all these encodings using the very limited templates. They don't keep their encoding in their head and putting them down using drawing tools, or they don't put them down into computer programs as equations. And they use DataInk, which led them to flexibly specify and reconfigure the encodings on both the data point level and data dimension level to find the one they like and share it with their friends. Thank you very much.
Questions? The microphone is here. Comments? Congratulations. This is awesome. I was wondering, do you plan? So right now it's. Sorry. Any questions before I'm talking, because I'm not sure you heard me before. Right now it's working on pen and touch.
Right.
Do you plan any non-pen and touch version for that one?
You're asking obsolete questions for me.
Yes.
So yes, like if you look at my interface, all the interaction I don't use very fancy gestures. It's just like all the things that you can do with your iPhone. You touch, you pinch to zoom, and you drag things around. You can do all of this with mouse and keyboard already. So you can easily map all the manipulation back to the old version of the UI. But I don't recommend.
Any more questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Micha from Northeastern University. Great talk, and it's a great tool.
Thank you.
That's really cool that you can create these creative visualizations that way. I wonder what really is exactly the output. Can you only output the SVG, or is there any option of exporting something that you can use for maybe more interactive visualizations or anything like that? Are there any integrations already existing or maybe planned?
So I can save all the drawings as a SVG, and also not just the main canvas, but also the legend. The purpose of that is, when you share it to somebody else, they can understand, they can read the legend. But what would be nice is we can preserve all the mappings so that when you read it, you can actually configure it in the way that you want to, you want to design. So I think for that, you probably just attach the JavaScript to the SVG, and what the person read is actually a smart program. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, Ita Jalal, CNRS friends. So really great work. Been to the demo, amazing.
Thanks.
I was just wondering if you heard from the artists that you talked to in the beginning or from users later on, how they managed the balance between the visual properties and the data properties. So how did this balance of power changed in the exploration phases? So were they caring more about the data properties or more about how it looked on the interface?
Yeah, so what I've just visualized is just one kind of workflow, and in our study we find different kinds of workflows. For example, one participant will skip the glyph first and go to the layout because he wants to understand the structure of the data. But I understand that because I'm collecting all the data, so I know roughly what kind of data I have. And they will play for maybe several rounds and then just say, okay, I think this particular data is good for layout and that particular data is good for glyph. And then they just, they will just start mapping them. So there are different kinds of workflows, yes.
One quick question.
Fab talk, fab application. It's in D3, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so D3 is data-driven, and one of the real powerful points about D3 is going from one data set to another data set through a whole load of linear interpolations or whatever interpolations you want to specify. It would be great if you could have a pen interface for that as well. Have you thought about that?
If D3 people approach me, I guess I will probably spend some time thinking about it, but you know, I'm like, my mindset was on this paper just like for getting it done. But I think, I mean, like, if you think about it, the interaction, the core is being directly manipulate the attributes. Yeah. And for D3, it's just creating the mapping there. So I think, you know, something can...
It's more the going from when you update the data set, you can see the change in the animations.
Ah, I see.
And, it's that type of user interface, adding that through anyway.
Yeah, my collaborators will hit me, but I...
Excuse me, can we take this offline? We have to go to the next speaker. Haijun is around after the session.